Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode number 86 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this week it's brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is my favorite coffee. It's roasted right here in Iowa, and it's roasted to order, which is one of my favorite things about it. When you make an order, the order is made especially for you, and that's it. It's not like they're roasting hundreds of pounds at a batch and then just putting them in a closet and hoping and praying people buy them over time. No, it's roasted specifically for you. It's really awesome. So go to www.couchtowncoffee.com and find a coffee you like, make an order, and they'll ship it to you. One of the coolest things about this is they'll even give you 20% off if you use the code word, and this week's code word is Lefty. This week's code word is Lefty. The code word is Lefty. It'll save you 20% on your order at www.couchtowncoffee.com. And hey, while you're looking at Couchtown Coffee stuff, go to their Facebook and give them a like. It is at Couchtown Coffee on Facebook. Thanks, Couchtown. Why is this week's code word Lefty? Well, let's get to it. This week I'm sitting down with Erik Brown, who is one of the owners and operators and managers, etc., at Lefty's in Des Moines. Lefty's in Des Moines, I've played there before handfuls of time. It's a great place. It's really kind of cool looking. They got little eclectic paintings on the walls. There's, we talk about all sorts of cool stuff in here, from the lighting effects on the stage, or even in throughout the bar, etc. So it's really kind of a fun place to go see shows. I've seen big acts, local acts, traveling smaller acts. I've seen every type of band there you can imagine. I've been watching their online live shows that have been going on throughout the coronavirus pandemic, and they are cool because you get to see bands you wouldn't normally get to see because I can't get to every show, and it's Des Moines a ways away for me. So what I end up doing now is I get to see all these cool bands online. So I get to see all these bands I wouldn't normally get to play with or things like that because of the nature of how booking shows works. But it's really cool because, like I said, Lefty's has all sorts of stuff. They even have comedy nights. We get into all this stuff and more in the upcoming podcast. This one's with Erik Brown, who I've seen perform as well in the Maw. So check him out live if you get the opportunity. Like I said, we're going to cover all this stuff in the upcoming podcast. So check it out. No more talking about it. Let's get down to business. It's episode number 86 with Erik Brown.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Cool. All right. So today I'm sitting down with Erik Brown. Erik, you are the owner and manager at Lefty's. Is that right?
I do something there for sure.
Okay.
So me and Ann Matthew own it together, and we kind of came up with the idea together she would handle more or less the bar side of stuff, the money stuff, and like the real work. And then I would do all the bands. I would book all the bands and do all the details and work with the sound and do stuff like that. So yeah, it's a hand in hand relationship there.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I mean, it's nice to have somebody, you're tackling it from both ends there, and you're not overloading anybody with all of the tasks all at once.
Yeah, it's really it's a team effort between bartenders and sound guys, and like everybody kind of just takes their job and runs with it, and we don't have to micromanage a lot of things. It's just kind of we know our jobs, they know our jobs, they know their jobs, and everybody just goes and does their own stuff, and they do it all well. So
yeah,
pretty ecstatic about that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have always run a tight ship over there at Lefty's. For people listening across the state, this is Lefty's Live Music in Des Moines. I know there is at least one other Lefty's located somewhere in Iowa, but this is the one in Des Moines.
Yes.
The Lefty's Live Music.
The Lefty's.
Yes. And that's one of those things. I've played at Lefty's before. I went there a handful of times and saw shows back in the day before I started playing live music and things like that. So it was really cool to actually get to go there and stand on the stage, and be one of the people that got to play a show there. And you guys have always had a really good lighting setup. You guys have nice murals all across the wall of different artists from across the generations. Lefty's has always been one of those cool places. Even your lighting structures in the place are like old cassette tapes that are used to
Yeah.
shield the light bulbs. Like, it's all really cool, you know?
Yeah, it was kind of it took us about 9 months of business planning,
Oh, wow.
which was both of our first business ventures. And so it was just me and Ann sitting in the living room with papers strewn out across the floor, Googling, how do you raise money? How do you do this? How do you do that? Like, we started from, ground zero, not knowing anything really about how to do a business. I knew stuff about the music industry. She knew a lot of stuff about the music industry and the bar side. And we kind of had a loose vision. But when you start putting it together in all little details, it's like, what do we really want? What do we want to stand out? What do we want to be known for? What experience do we want to give people when they come in here? How much do the bands matter to us? How do we treat them a certain way? So, like, no stone left unturned. We looked at everything, and like the design of the room, you're talking about, like the tapes and the aesthetics and stuff, and kind of the vision was like, I want it to look like my 17-year-old bedroom. Like,
Oh, cool.
like you hang up the posters of your favorite musicians, and you put black lights on your wall, and you put up stuff that's, pleasing to the eye and to the ear. So that was the concept behind it, for sure.
That totally makes sense. It's really neat. I mean, like, it doesn't just stop there. You guys have, like I said, you've always had like some of the best lighting and sound systems as far as local bars that I've been to and things like that. You've got your own sound guy there. I believe even on the wall near the bathrooms, you've got a section from the Safari Club wall. Does that sound right?
That's it's from Harry Mary's. I think
There you go.
it was there might be some stuff left over from Safari there, but it was Gus Ramirez, I think, that contacted me about that. He was like, "Hey, there's a green room wall in the back room where the green room used to be when it was Harry Mary's. Is that still there?" And I told him, no, it's been sheetrocked, so we don't know if it's behind that sheetrock or not. And that was we've got a video up on our page of us discovering that wall.
Oh, cool.
So, like, we're peeling sheetrock, and we see this little green wall behind it, and we're like, oh, shit. Like, it's there. It's intact. And so we were really careful to preserve that. And then we took it out, and we kind of skill sawed it into pieces and pulled it out. And I was like, how do we display this? Like, this is history. What do we do with it? And so, yeah, we decided to put it in the hallway back there. And it really is an ode to history. Like, there's everybody that's played there, from Burn the Priest to, Gigi Allen's on that wall. And it's so chock full of history. The Slipknot history is all over it. It's like I've spent way too many hours just staring at one section of that little green room wall going, how Tenacious D? Really?
Yeah, dude,
like,
that was the first thing I saw when somebody said that wall was there. I went into a show, I went to the bathroom, and I came out, and it's like, oh, here's the wall. Here's the old wall. And it's the very first thing I saw was Tenacious D's autograph. And I said, holy crap, are you serious?
I know, it's pretty cool. Over time, we've had to, I wanted to plexiglass it because I didn't want people to write on it. I was like, there is a green room now, and you can write and put your stickers all over it, and we can make new history, but this history is to be preserved. And I think it's an iconic thing as far as Des Moines history and music history and art history goes. And I'd love to. There's more pieces of it actually in the green room that we haven't taken out yet. So,
oh, wow.
I'd like to do that in the future.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Dude, that's one of my favorite things about going to Lefty's is peeking at that wall and just being like, dude, this is really neat. You get to see the fact that, like you said, it's preserved history. It's something that happened in Des Moines, and some of those names are absolutely monster names. And you might not have known it, 10, 20 years ago, whenever they signed the wall, but now it's undeniable, some of the names that are on there.
Oh, it's funny too. I've looked. I've probably spent more time than anybody staring at that thing. But there's this argument on that green room wall going back and forth with the Slipknot members talking shit about Sid, and he's like tagging DJ Starscream, and they're all talking shit about him being a horrible DJ, and it's like just this back and forth of everybody, like all these band members from Clown to everyone, just talking shit about DJ Starscream, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And it's all pre-'99. It's all pre-Slipknot stuff. So it's pretty funny. Pretty funny deep dive.
Well, that actually brings me, like, we talked a little bit before the podcast. You and I have had very minimal interaction, even though I've played at your club. I've seen you play in the Maw before, which, by the way, amazing band. You guys need to do more shows, but I think the fact that you do select shows makes it that much more special when you get to see you guys live.
That's the way we feel about it. It's like,
dude, it totally makes sense.
I can only run, a couple of 10Ks a year. So that's what playing in that band live is. I'm like, let's pick maybe 10 shows we want to do, make them really important and make them a big deal and keep it at that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's something, I feel, because I don't know you very well, I feel like your history in the Des Moines music area probably goes back quite a ways. Can you enlighten me on how all this started, or some of your ties to the local music area?
Yeah, so I was living in Colorado. I studied jazz at Northern Colorado. I'm a trumpet player. So I was living there. I lived in Colorado for 10 years. I'm originally from Georgia. So I was out there playing some touring bands and doing some studio work and stuff. And then I had a friend who was up here, Alan Domer, was playing drums in the Maw. And he kept sending me little YouTube clips. At the time, they were the progression from Inhale the Ellipses, and it had progressed into And God Bless Ignorance. So that's who they were when they were sending me clips, and it was just Forrest Lone Fight and Alan, and I forget the other dude's name because I'm horrible with names. But so he kept sending me these clips saying, man, you should come up to Iowa and sit in with this band. I think you could really contribute, and I think it would be good for you. And I was like, I'm not moving to Iowa, dude. I'm in Colorado. I'm in the best place you could possibly be on the planet. It's a beautiful state. It's a wonderful place to tour out of. There's tons of diversity in music, and I've got it made here. And he finally sent me a clip that caught my attention, and the song was called Behold Them All. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, yep, I'll come up for a week. I'll check it out. So at the time I came up and visited, their practice room was adjacent. It was Jerry's building where all the bands practiced, catty corner to where House of Bricks was. Mm-hmm. And so we sit there for every night for 7 nights that I was up here and just play all night long, 6-8 hours every night. Just play. And at the end of that, I just kind of made the decision. I was like, I can play music with these guys for the rest of my life. Why not Iowa? Why not?
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. So I moved up here, packed up a U-Haul, left everything, all my friends, everything I knew, all my safety net, and just moved up here and basically lived on couches for probably about 3 years. I moved up here about 11 years ago. It was the winter of 99. So I guess this was my first real snow, Iowa snow, and it was a bad winter. It was really bad when I got here. And then, I've been here since. I've been playing with that band. It's had we've gone through 2 drummers and a bass player at this point, but still the same band, still the same theory and how we write, how we perform. Our concept of the idea of the band is still exactly the same with just different members now, and it's progressed, I think, nicely. So that's what drew me here. And then playing around town and meeting other musicians. And as a trumpet player, I got to play with a lot of other people sitting in at little dive bars like the Greenwood and Yacht Club and all these other places, Carl's, Mm-hmm. And then just kind of developed a really good relationship with all these just world-class musicians that are in Des Moines, of all places. Anybody I talk to outside of Des Moines is generally where is Iowa? Or are you in Idaho? Or, they just have no concept. And it's interesting because if you tour as a musician, you go into, cities and you're like, man, there's a ton of good musicians. It's like that everywhere. It really is like that. But Des Moines is pretty special to me for sure.
So you're originally from Colorado then?
I grew up in Georgia.
Oh, geez.
Yep. I'm a Southern boy.
So you're world travel then, or at least U.S. traveled.
Yeah, I started playing in bands when I was like bar bands, probably when I was 16 years old in Georgia.
Was that with the trumpet, or did you play guitar or something else?
Yep, I was playing trumpet, and it was kind of my first band was kind of like a fusion funk band. Like the first thing we ever did was like stuff off of Frizzle Fry. So we were into
cool.
Primus, and we were into that fusion funk kind of stuff, and you add trumpet into it. And I was doing vocals and trumpet, and that just kind of, and then I minored in piano. So arranging music was just kind of natural to me. And I mixed keyboards in and arranging and vocals and other bands. And then I sang in metal bands in Colorado for a while. And so I've kind of done just about all of it. I played in Tex-Mex bands. I've played in jazz bands, orchestras, you name it.
Oh, that's crazy. So how did you get started with like the trumpet being your main instrument? I mean, I started on trumpet in school, and I never really took it much farther than my senior year of high school, and I never really, put much love into it. But how did you transition from like learning a trumpet to being like, dude, I can play this anywhere, with any band or whatever?
Yeah, it was really weird because I was super young, and we were actually we moved around a little bit through the South when I was super young, and we were living in Tennessee, in Cleveland, Tennessee, and it was at a church, and a really famous contemporary Christian trumpet player, Phil Driscoll, was the head of the music there.
Okay.
And he would come in, and he would like, the band would already be playing. I think he played like 3 churches every Sunday or something. Like, he was already world renowned. But he would come in, and like the church band would already be playing, and then he'd come in with the trumpet and just take the music from one place to another. Like,
oh wow!
And so I was probably 5, 6 years old, and I basically just looked at my dad and said, "That's what I want to do." And he said, "What?
Cool.
Play music?" And I said, "No, play that instrument, that thing right there that he's doing."
That's sweet.
Parents were smart enough; they took me to a local college and were like, introductory music course kind of thing. I just went right to the trumpet and was like, I don't want to try anything else. This is the instrument that I want to play. Picked it from that 6-year-old age, studied it, went to a fine arts school through middle school and high school, and then studied jazz and classical music in college. And it's just always been my first and kind of only love, really.
That's crazy. I think what a lot of people might not understand is, generally speaking, before the guitar became like the lead instrument in most bands, you would go back to like the big band days, and the trumpet was kind of the lead instrument.
Yep. It's always been an alpha instrument. It's funny, like looking back at middle school and high school and how competitive brass players were.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, like me moving into like the smaller sector of going out and trying to play in a 3-piece or a 4-piece band, I was skateboarding, and I was into punk rock, and I was into kind of the social aspect of being out and going to small shows, and thought, why does the trumpet not fit in this setting? And just kind of forced myself upon these bands that I was in. I was like, hey, you're just going to get trumpet. Sorry, I believe trumpet goes on everything. I don't care if it's whatever it is. You're getting a trumpet player now. So
some heavy metal breakdown, and you're honking out a solo.
Yes, yeah. Some honestly, like my second band, James Gate, was a really heavy band, and we just put trumpet in it. We just mashed it on the top of it, and had I not been a delinquent when I was young, we would have probably still been touring. I mean, that band was a fantastic band. I'd still be in Georgia probably touring the world with that band. But yeah, heavy fusion music with brass, like that sounds wild. Fantastic to me. Yeah.
Do you have any of that stuff recorded at all?
Yeah, there's actually a James Gate page on Facebook that has some of that music. Like, I mean, we were recording like on ADAT and stuff even at that point. Like,
oh wow.
So, yeah, there's some stuff out there.
That's crazy. I'm probably gonna have to look that up. I didn't know that, and that's probably one of my favorite parts about this. Is I know you have some prominence. You've got some chops. You've been around and done some stuff, but I don't know you that well. So like that's really cool. I knew you played trumpet, but I didn't know it went to this extent.
Yeah, and because I don't really play as much horn now as I used to. I mean, in the mall, I'm predominantly the keyboard player and the vocalist. So. Yep. That's just, I mean, I love piano too. I absolutely, it's an easy instrument for me to transfer. My brain kind of thinks that way. It was either guitar or piano to minor in. Mm-hmm. And I'd already been playing piano from a young age. So I was like, I dig the piano. Like, love Elton John, and I just when I dream of music, I dream in piano. When I dream about like melodies, I dream in trumpet. So
neat. Yeah, I'd have to say, like, I'm not well polished in music theory at all, but I did take a college level music theory class, and I don't know. It took me a while to gauge how everything was like put together, and then one day somebody sat me down in front of a keyboard, and they were like, "This is how it goes," and I said, "This makes sense."
Right. Yeah, you can visually see it all. It's like, oh yeah, it's all there.
Yeah. I mean, you can do that with a lot of instruments, and you start to figure out the patterns. But for some reason, the keyboard I feel like almost like music theory was written around a keyboard.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, it is a stringed instrument, but it wasn't the same for me. Like, I can play guitar, but I wasn't drawn to guitar. Like, I wasn't able to visualize arrangements on guitar the way I was on piano. So I was like, take the easier path. Everybody plays guitar.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Take keyboard. Nobody. And now the problem is like I realize like there's no real cool way to play piano. You just can't look cool. And I'm like, that's the one thing I missed out on is guitar players look cool, and I don't get that. Like, I can't do like the leg stance. I can't do any of that cool shit.
You gotta bust out a keytar, man.
That's what everybody says. I'm like, have you ever seen a keytar look cool? I don't know, man.
Oh, that's also very true. I remember Children of Bodom had their first keyboardist walked around with a keytar, and it looks severely less badass than their second keyboardist.
I saw them live, and they're fantastic. I saw them live in Denver at probably the Bluebird Theater. And I remember thinking just how amazingly tight they were, how big and how heavy and epic orchestration it was. But then I remember thinking, God, that keyboard player looks stupid. Like, that thing looks so dumb right now. Like, I just couldn't fathom ever doing that.
Yeah, their original keyboard is with the keytar. I remember looking at pictures of them back in the day, and I'm like, this looks borderline not badass.
No, it's the opposite.
But they got like a new keyboardist, and he has some weird way of setting up his keyboards where they're like vertical. So if he stands at them, it's like they're sitting in his lap, but he's standing up. Does that make sense?
I've seen that, and I still try to. I love being a performer. I love performing. I also love the music to be particularly well done. Like I don't like sloppy performances. We rehearse really hard, and we do that, and the music's extremely intricate. So I'm pretty limited. Like I've over the years of playing here in Des Moines with them all. There's plenty of shows where I've kicked some keyboards over and elbowed some keys and broke some keyboards and done some rather crazy things, but you're pretty limited, and I don't like playing standing up. Like, it's not comfortable for me. Like, I know a couple of keyboard players in town, like Rich Cantrell's an amazing keyboard player from Cirrus Minor and a billion other bands, and he likes to stand up, and I'm like, dude, I can't do it. It's just not comfortable for me. I feel weird. Like, I have to feels proper to sit up and have posture, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, maybe it's a classically trained thing. I don't know, but
it could be, or it could just be I'm fat and lazy at this point.
Dude, I always wondered, like, too. I don't play the piano. I'm not good at it. I used it in music theory class, and that was about it. But I also found that sitting at a piano and playing is kind of like typing at a keyboard. If you type too much, your hands kind of get tired, especially if they're not in the right angles and things like that. Right. I oftentimes wondered about that, if standing up and playing is more comfortable, or sitting down as playing is more comfortable, or if that was why the guy from Children of Bodom tipped his keys 90 degrees, so that way he could like stand up and play them while they were on the vertical instead of on the horizontal.
It could be. I think there's a lot to be said for like positioning of instruments. When I see guitar players like really low strung with their guitars like down by their knees, I'm like, that can't be comfortable.
No,
that's not your hand position. Like if you look at a traditional jazz guitar player, they're sitting down.
Yeah.
And their guitar is basically chest level. Like,
yeah,
that's really where your hands are the most comfortable to be able to do large chords or sweeps or anything. Mm-hmm. Drums are the same way. If you set your drums up too far apart or at the wrong angles, you can't strike them right. I mean, I think every instrument's kind of like that. Piano's certainly like that. Trumpet is like that. if you hold your elbows in and squeeze your chest, you can't get as much air. You know, there's just posturing things that work better technique wise for instruments, I think.
Yeah, I remember that with the trumpet. If you have your elbows out, you get more breath in, and not only that, but like if you were doing marching trumpet or walking around, it would help stabilize the instrument more and all this. I think it all kind of weird how it worked together, but it makes total sense.
Yep. Yeah, the trumpets always had to stand up in the back. I did when I performed. I played with a local band here for a while called Thankful Dirt, and it was just a kind of Americana bluesy trio. So it was very, very quiet. Like the trumpet approach that I used was kind of like I tried to sound like a cello, basically.
Oh yeah.
So, beautiful, soft, whole note kind of stuff. But I sat down to do that. But I just figured out a way to be able to create more air with my diaphragm by sitting down. But it looked goofy if I was standing up, like next to them. So it looked like I was ready for marching band. And it was like, that's not quite the aesthetic. Like, so part of it is visual too, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be standing up with a trumpet playing on stage, you might as well be marching around like Les Claypool, cause
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or be ready to blow the end out of it. Like,
yeah. I mean, this is probably one of my favorite podcasts I'm going to do. Oh shoot. That was, man, I just had a notification. Anyways, sorry for anybody that heard that. But anyways, so I got I got off the track here. Okay, so I'm talking with Erik. You run Lefties. You are in you have been through a multitude of bands. Currently, you're playing in the Maw. You're playing the keyboard in the Maw, and I can't recommend this enough for people to go check out the Maw. You guys are. Like you said, you're very intricate, you're very tight. You could tell you're practiced a lot. It's very complex music that doesn't go off the rails and get muddy. It doesn't, you have a direction you're going, and it's not like you go a certain direction and kind of get lost like some of these jammy bands and then finally bring it all back together at the end. It's very
it's not Fish.
No. No, it's very well thought out. And, I remember the first time I saw you, God, where was, who was playing on that show? Who was playing? I don't recall, but I still remember the first time seeing you guys play, and I was just like, God dang, these guys are good. It's we might have even opened up for you at that show, but it was just one of those deals where it's like, I can't believe this much sound came out of that few people.
Right. Yeah. We do try to create soundscapes and kind of things that sonically may confuse the ear a little bit, and we kind of pride ourselves on that. As like the listener can't quite figure out what they're hearing. Is that a guitar, or is that a piano, or is that a synthesizer, or is that the bass? Like I love that idea of melding sounds together and trying to figure out how to just kind of create this landscape. And so I think all the songs we write are generally approached that way. And we like heavy music. All of us are fans of heavy music. And I don't think heavy music is is distortion on a pedal. I think heavy music is a mentality. It can be some of the heaviest music I've ever heard was classical music. It's the content. It's how it's created in the kind of the orchestration, how the violins are put together with clarinets. You can make it really dark and ominous and pretty heavy with just those instruments, but people don't think of those as heavy. They don't think of piano as a heavy instrument. I'm telling you it is. And we like to try to find those things inside of those instruments.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot that has to do with chord structure or what notes you're hitting next to other notes that can actually tell you what is heavy as opposed to what's not. Kind of on the same area as that. I've always thought that like down tuning a guitar doesn't make your music more heavy. And I mean, that's like, I guess that's a personal preference or personal argument, but at the same rate, like I remember watching a video and I almost don't even want to say it was Joe Bonamassa, but it was Joe Bonamassa.
Right.
And he was talking about how you can make a standard tuned guitar sound heavy and you don't need to down tune anything. And it was really kind of eye opening to see that like, oh, this sounds really, like it sounds like the heavy stuff that these other guys are playing, but he's just playing in standard tuning with 6 strings. So heavy might be more of a mentality or how you tie everything together, not necessarily, like you said, heavy distortion and denim and leather and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it is. And it can also be like, I know early in my, songwriting history, I'm 45 now. I was writing songs when I was 11 years old, but I also realized that it doesn't have to be minor chords that are heavy. It's,
True.
like you can play in E tuning, you can play in major C tuning, and they can be major chords, and it's just how you put them together. Mm-hmm. And they can be so off-putting. Like, and if you listen to a lot of strange classical music, Bach and Beethoven wrote some really heavy stuff with major chords. They didn't use those sad minor chord progressions. And that's a challenge. It's just a challenge to do it in natural tuning. It's a challenge to do it with major chord progressions. It's a challenge. So I think I don't know that everybody else is cheating, but I like that approach. I like the challenge of it.
Yeah, I mean, I see totally where like a lot of that makes sense, because even if you just break it down to the most basic stuff, I mean, this is more music theory than anything, but you can play a major scale, and if you start in a different spot and end in a different spot, all of a sudden, wham, it's minor, So you can kind of shift in between the two a little bit here and there. It happens a lot on the guitar with like an E minor to a G major. That's like the common one that a lot of people throw around on a guitar, probably because it's the easiest, but if you just go through like, the 101 theory and the circle of fifths and just play through that, you'll find out like, oh my God, these chords are all relative. Like the minor third from C is E minor, or, E flat minor or major. Mm-hmm. And you can follow that kind of, but a theory is, I know it gets a bad rap. I know it does. Like I talk theory with people all the time that are like, what in the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Like, I don't need all this shit. And my answer to them, or my response to them, is, why would you build a house with just a fucking hammer? Yeah.
Why would you not have all the tools at your disposal to build a house? It makes it easier. Like,
totally makes sense.
The ear playing is great, and I think that to be a career musician, you have to have a great ear. I don't think you can do it without that. But why not learn the other tools? It's the language you're speaking. Why not learn it fully? So. Oh
yeah. That actually brings me to like I remember watching a Victor Wooten thing, and that's exactly how he described it. He said it's just like talking. When you first start talking, it's a bunch of goo goo gaga nonsense. But you sit around people that know how to talk, and then eventually you figure out how to talk, and that's just growing up from being a baby to an adult. And you could do that with music too. You just have to be around the right people, using the right music to train you to do the right things. And that's how he described growing up. I mean, he's got a slightly different upbringing than most of us, with a family of musical monsters, him being one of the youngest,
and he's a monster himself. Like,
it's insane.
Victor's a freak.
Yeah, I love watching those guys and some of the stuff they do. And it's like, I didn't know you could do this on a bass, and then it's like somebody's doing it on a guitar, and like, I didn't know you could do that on a guitar. Like,
right? Yes, I know.
But yeah, I mean,
it's a fun thing about running the club too, is that we're, because we do so many different levels of musicians. Like we do everything from kids recitals to Reverend Horton Heat. You know what I mean? From the most refined, eclectic, brilliant artists to the ones that just started out 3 months ago. And it's fun for me, like from the local level, to even just watch bands progress, watch individual guitar players progress, watch them get better from month to month when they come through the club, and just watch them kind of come into their own and seeing them hone their craft. Like I just get so much joy out of that. I don't know why.
That's got to be one of those odd benefits. I didn't even think about that. Like I'd talked to some pro wrestling guys on a couple other podcasts, but I'd went to so many pro wrestling shows. It was cool to see, as the course of a year progressed, watch the new guys come in, get better, and then be so good that you didn't even know they were new guys anymore. And that's probably the same thing with musicians. You get to see, this is this band. They just formed. It's a bunch of guys or gals that have never played on stage before. And if they stay together a year down the road, you're like, oh, these guys are all real tight and stuff like that. And this person got better at the guitar, and that person's obviously better at drums. I bet it's really kind of endearing to see these people take their passions and run with them.
It is. And watching them like progress from being nervous on stage to holding a room in their hand and seeing that feeling on, like, you can see it in their faces. Like once they've kind of run over that speed bump and been like, oh, I'm the one in control here. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have any reason to be nervous anymore. This is my show. I'm in control. And it's such a neat thing to experience.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I can definitely say my first shows that I played, I was super nervous, and now I have, like you said, I've got a little bit more command over what I'm doing up there. I'm not walking around like, oh geez. And I even remember playing like my first Unity show, which is it's like a power metal type stuff, and it's a lot of notes. It took me a long time to practice all this stuff and get good enough to be able to play. And we played our first show, and I don't think I'd ever been so nervous to play a show before. And then I watched the video of that to a video that I had taken like 4 or 5 shows later, and 4 or 5 shows later, I'm like walking around headbanging and pointing at people and hamming it up when there's some some duo guitar stuff going on, and so it's like, oh wow. I actually know exactly firsthand what you mean, where you get more comfortable playing with these people and being up there. Like the first time someone puts a mic in front of your face at a club, you're like, hello, this is a
everybody.
band. Yeah. And
we are such and such from Des Moines. My name is David, and this song is about my girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And after a while, you kind of get, like, has anybody ever had one of the, and then you actually kind of get to interact with them a little bit better than just being like, I'm playing a song, hope you like it, and just, it's also one of those things like performing is so much more than literally just standing in one spot and not moving. Even though I will have to say some of the best bands I've seen have almost no flash, and the dudes are literally just absolute shred machines. Think of it this way. Like a good example of this would be the last time I saw you opened up for Marvin, and I sat down with Danny and did a podcast with him that week. Marvin's a good example. They don't move around too much, but those guys, you were getting more notes per dollar spent than with any other band, you know?
And they've got a really, they're really high IQ guys. They're obviously massively talented, but they've also got their stage show down. They have banter that works really well for them on stage.
Oh yeah.
Their humor is, they're from Israel, you know what I mean? Their language is a little bit broken, and they've got this funny humor about them, and it's a little highbrow and it's a little quirky, but it's perfect. It fits the music. You almost get to peer into who they are by the way they talk to each other on stage. Mm-hmm. And then they shred. The next song, they blow your mind away, and you're like, I just should fucking stop playing music. Like
that's how I feel every time. And I even when I talked to him, we covered some of the same ground here, where I was like, man, I watched some of your videos, and some of your music theory gets so deep that I don't, at 3 minutes into this 20-minute video, I'm lost.
Right.
And he just said, well, you got to figure out where you got lost, learn that stuff, and then just go back into the video and watch it until you get lost again and figure out what I'm, and that's what you were saying. You got to find the music theory and figure out how to build on it to make this stuff. Because, if we break it down to your house analogy, I'm building a lean-to, and I'm like, dude, this thing's pretty sweet. I can stay in here and, out of the wind and stuff. And he's just like, well, this mansion here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an egress in here with a solarium. And it's like, what?
Yes.
Like,
yes,
it's a little bit past what I'm doing, but
yeah. And we all want to live in his house, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So like another thing I want to talk to you about here, just to kind of switch gears a little bit. You're managing Lefties. You're running the show down there. I've always been a fan of your guys' great sound that you guys have run there. I've never been to a show there where the sound is off-putting at all. I don't know if that's the benefit of good people behind the soundboard, probably, or good sound equipment, probably, or the way the building is built. I don't know, but it's always been one of my favorite places to go see shows, because it's never like blindingly loud. It's never over the top anything. It just sounds good all the time. Is that something that you hunted down the right sound guys to do this, or you just, how did that all work out for you?
It was everything. It started with the room. And so I had drawn out like kind of my acoustic vision of what I thought would work for what we were looking at doing. And what we were looking at doing was versatility. Like we wanted to be as versatile as possible. We wanted to do what I said earlier, from kids recitals to, solo acts to the biggest heavy metal acts to, jazz bands. We wanted to be able to cover all of that. So in order to do that, you really kind of need a certain type of shape of room. You need a certain height of ceiling. So I had some requirements acoustically. So when we were looking at properties, that allowed us to walk into a room or look at the dimensions of the room and go, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work. I mean, we cut down 800 different properties inside of Des Moines proper just by the dimensions, saying,
Oh, wow.
these things won't work for us acoustically. And then once we did kind of fall into that room, that it fit the parameters pretty much perfect. I was looking for a 300 to 450 kind of cap room with 14-foot at least high ceilings and a certain amount of throw in the room. So once we found that, then we had to go into gear. And so I probably went through at least, I had 6 different companies in there and probably 20 different sound guys. And we went through at least 10 to 15, I don't know, different front of house systems.
Oh, whoa.
Like in a bare room, like just putting speakers on the ground and standing back and listening to different configurations of power amps through different mains, through different subs, through different crossovers, like all these different, I mean, and that's basically where we said, we're going to spend our money here.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck the cool looking chairs and fuck the cool looking tables and the decor. We can figure all that shit out. We can make it all ourselves if we have to. But if it doesn't sound amazing, then this is all pointless. This is absolutely pointless. So
yeah, there's nothing worse than going to a show to see a band you want to see and it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, and it could be a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
It could be, you could go in and be like, oh shit, this place is cool as fuck. And it's got a separate bar over here. And like, this is, and the bathrooms are super nice and all this. And then you go and it sounds like shit. And you're like, well, there's the experience. The whole experience is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
The whole point of seeing live music is to connect, right? Like we're trying to connect. And if you can't have sound that you can connect with, if it doesn't do the musician justice, there's no point. I mean, I've walked out of more venues than I can count just because I couldn't take it. I was like, I love this band and it's not doing them any favors to be playing in this room.
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally true. I mean, that's like,
so
it's like going to
it was finding the room, finding the equipment. And then, Brad Millis on the soundboard he's been with me from day one. I hired him without hearing him mix up anything.
Oh, wow.
Like I hired him. He was in there with me wrapping cables and soldering stuff. We wrapped every cable through the ceiling. We did it all ourselves. And kind of at the end of it, he was just there every day, just working 12 hours a day, 14, 16 hours a day for no pay, no money. We weren't paying him anything. Wow. He was just there, like soldering speak-on cables to, running a 150-foot snake and trying to, going through all of the stuff with me. And I hired him, based on, I wanted one sound guy to run everything. And part of that was consistency. It's like, I didn't want to have to figure out who was going to be my sound guy this Friday or Saturday. And then when bands come through, they're like, God, the sound was really good last time. Is that guy here again? And then you go, no, he's not here tonight. I got a new guy. And that's a lot of places did that. They rolled, at least that I know of around the country. They just kind of roll through sound guys. I'm like, no, I want one guy to make it consistent. And when those bands come in, they see Brad, this relief you can see floods over them. They're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, I've worked with this dude and this dude kills it. Like he kills it every time. My light show is amazing. My mix is fantastic on stage. I'm going to have to do nothing but just play great tonight. Like that's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, there's always the joke where like the sound guy sets the level and then the guitarist tweaks his junk and then
Right.
the sound guy's mad. And there's always the battle between the people on stage and the people at the booth in the back of the room. And I will have to say, like you said it there, like you can go to some place and the sound sounds great one time and you show up the next time and it's a different sound guy. And that could be from 1 month to the next, or they might just have like 6 sound guys revolving on a door there that are just like, oh, it's Tuesday, so this guy's here. Or it's the third Saturday of the month, so that person's. You end up running into a lot of that situation, and I can say that it does make a difference. Like the secret weapon to a band playing live is actually the sound guy, and that is something nobody ever says anything about. If I play a show and it sounds good, and I know it sounds good, I always try and thank the sound guy because, honestly, like without them, you're at their beck and call. Otherwise, you're just amps on stage and praying like hell that it's mixed well.
Yeah, and you got to have a guy that you trust Like, yeah, it's one thing to get your stage mix and you sound good on stage to yourself, but you got to trust that what everybody else is hearing is amazing too. So that's a big trust factor, especially with guitar players. Everybody, harps on the guitar players. It's the trust factor of, well, I don't think enough of my guitar is going out front, so I'm going to lean back and flip it to 5 instead of 3.
Yeah.
And so with Brad and having that consistency, we've cut down on a lot of that. Those musicians, from the highest end musicians to the beginners, all have this trust factor with him that we've built over the past 5 years, that he's built over the past 5 years, that when he sets your level on stage, trust it's going to sound amazing out front. You don't need to tweak anything. Mm-hmm. And if you want more guitar, ask for it in the monitor. And that's working with the same guy over and over. And I'm proud to say that, we get a lot of stuff from agents and bands that are excited to come back in, and that's always what they focus on. They're like, man, the sound there was the best we had on tour. We did 90 days on the road. That's the best room we played. And that's awesome. I'll take that as the highest compliment of all time. And yeah, most of that is attributed to Brad for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've played, I'm sure you've played it, I'm sure everyone listening has played shows where you don't have a house PA, or the house PA doesn't have the capabilities of miking stuff up, or you've got a house PA and it has the capabilities of miking stuff up, but there's no sound guy, So we've all played the shows where you just, okay, the vocals are going over the PA and everything else is just live sound, and we're just going to hope it sounds good, and you you pick someone out of the crowd, like, who needs to turn this up or down, and it's always kind of rough because it's like, well, this person's related to the drummer, so they're going to tell everyone to turn it down, or just something like, you always end up with one of those situations. I recall being at a show not terribly long ago, probably within the last 6 months, and I went outside, I came back in, and you got 3 or 4 people up at the front of the stage with their thumbs up and their thumbs down, trying to tell everyone to turn it up and turn it down. And finally I was just like, everybody stop, turn the guitar up, turn that bass down, turn the vocals way up. There, we're good. And it sounded great. And someone was just like, that sounds really good. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't take much to mix stuff. I mean, but some of that, like I said, it also has to do with preference. If you're relying on one of your buddies to help you mix the sound, he's probably going to be like, oh, my buddy plays lead guitar, crank that shit to 20, and like, you don't have to worry about any of that guesswork when you go to a place that has a sound guy, especially a good one,
Right. We were lucky finding him. I also think he was lucky finding us. It was kind of a great marriage, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be in one room, and you can take a great sound guy and you can put him in a room that he's never worked in, and he's going to have difficulties. Yeah, there's going to be little idiosyncrasies. There's going to be bass drops in certain parts of the room. There's things that you have to know about it. And we've had some great sound guys come through with touring bands, and I basically had to tell Brad, like, that's not up to our standards. Go back there and fix it. Like, their front of house guy may be great for Spicoli's, but he doesn't know how to manage our room, and we have a standard of sound, and we're in control of that, and that reflects on us. So,
I guess that's another point. If you got your own sound guy, then the sound is indicative of who you've got in the room. And if you go to a place where there's no sound guy, then it's up to the band. So it reflects poorly on you, not necessarily the band. I never even thought of that.
That's exactly right. Yep. And so I think we've done a good job of managing that, and how we work with, when there's plenty of bands that bring in their own boards and their own, power amp setups, and they've got in-ear monitors and they've got their own stuff kind of put together. But when it comes to front of house, I mean, him doing it every day for 5 years, he probably knows how to do the room. Like, he's probably got it under control. So.
Yeah, no kidding. I gotta ask you, how did Lefty's get its name? I think I know, but let's enlighten some people.
Yeah, so Lefty is Ann's dog. He's a tripod. He's missing his left leg. So, and he's kind of a local celebrity. Like he's been like I think one year he was like on the lead parade float for Pride Fest and stuff. Like, he was kind of a staple in the East Village. Everybody knew him. He's got his own Instagram and Facebook page and shit. And when her and I were going through what to name the club, I mean, it's like naming a band. Mm-hmm. You're trying to figure. We wrote hundreds of names down. Capital City Theater, and the the funky note and the fucking whatever, you just come up with all this shit. And we were just going round and round for weeks on it and could not figure out what to name the baby. And it had to be something that that fit all genres of music. Like a good example of that is like Noche. Noche is the jazz club in town, and it sounds like a jazz club. It doesn't sound like a punk rock club.
No.
It's very specific. Their image, the name, all of that stuff is very specific to what it is, and it tells you what you're going in to kind of experience. So we had to figure out kind of the logo and a name that would cover all of that. Would it be cool for Hemlock to come in and play under that moniker and under that name? And would it also be cool for kids and parents to come in for recitals? Would it work for everything? And that was pretty tough to do. And I think it was just a late night, and I think I was walking through the living room and I was like, fuck it, call it Lefties and let's be done with it. Like, we got to laughing so hard about it. It was more humor than anything. Yeah. But then as we kind of said it more, it was like, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
And then the image of the dog and, and like all of that kind of, it all worked together. And it was like, yeah, who doesn't love Lefty? Like, he's such a good boy.
Dude. Yeah. And I love Lefties. I love the logo for Lefties. If anybody's looking for Lefties, it is on Facebook. It is at Lefties Live Music. I'll put a link down below so you can check it out. But the profile picture there is your logo, and it's obviously Lefty the dog. He's winking at you, but where his left arm would be, there's like a bandage over it. It's so cute and awesome. And that's on the back of the stage too.
It was a really well thought out logo. I should give a shout out to Pat Moriarty, is the one who drew that image.
Booyah!
And we had quite a few people work on imaging for us. I mean, we know all kinds of great artists across the state and across the country, and Pat was just one of those guys that had this vision for it. He knew me and he knew us from House of Bricks. The Moriarty family is obviously from Des Moines, but he was teaching comic art and design, I believe, out at the Seattle Art Institute. So the guy's a world renowned artist, and he kind of just stepped up and said, I want to volunteer to do this for you guys. Like, it's such an important thing to have the right image. And he was studying like the very early Disney artwork at the time.
Oh, dude, that makes sense.
That's where it came from, was he was doing the very beginning of animation. Like, he was doing those first drawings of the first cartoon animals. And so he kind of went through, he probably went through hundreds of different sketches. He's such a focused, particular guy about his artwork. And that's where he landed. And when it came across, man, I was just like, oh my God. Dude. It's so amazing. It captures everything in an image. Like, that's what artists are amazing at doing. So.
Yes. Oh man. I mean, I can say that as far as like my Audible Farm logo, I could have made something, but it would have been absolute trash. So I hired an artist to do it, and it looks amazing. So it's
it's fantastic. No, I love it too. I saw it and I was like, see, there's something to be said. Like, your image can kind of make or break it.
It totally does. Any bands listening to this, I highly recommend. Find somebody local. They probably won't charge more than $50-$100 or something. Or find somebody you like on the internet and pay them a couple $100 for the rights to use an image, because it'll stick with you forever and it'll be great. It'll look good. It's not something that's just a normal font over a black background that has,
no Comic Sans. I don't let's see it.
True. I've even fought with myself on that with some of this stuff I do on Audible Farm, as far as like, what font should I use? Should I use this? And it's like, it looks like a child would have done that in Paint or something, So I avoid some stuff, and I do a little bit of the editing myself for images, but like I said, I've hired a professional artist to do it. I paid him the money he wanted because it looks that good, and it's justifiable. I love your guys' image there, and now you described it as like early Disney meets comics. Yeah, it's perfect. You get the black and white, the shading, everything. It looks great. I can't say enough about how awesome the Lefties and the story that goes behind it. It all ties into the place. It's actually a very awesome story. Occasionally, Lefty shows up at Lefties, right?
He does. He's getting to be a little bit older dude, and his ears are pretty sensitive. So we won't take him in when it's loud. Like, we try to be aware of that, and he won't keep his headphones on. So, but he loves being in there. Like, anytime either one of us are about to walk out the door to go to work, he's like, "Can I go, please? Ken has," and we're like, "No, it's heavy metal tonight. You can't go, buddy." So
no, you can't has cheeseburger.
Ken has no. But he goes on comedy nights. Comedy's every Tuesday night, so he goes to the open mic and runs around and begs burritos from everybody. And
dude, I gotta get to one of your comedy nights.
Oh, they're so good. They're so good, man. They're so good.
I've only been to a couple local comedy shows, and I think it's like the music scene. I didn't realize how funny local people were
man.
until you actually go see some of them. Like, this dude's from Iowa. Are you serious? Because this is hilarious.
Yes, underground comedy is. We've known those guys. I've known those guys since I moved into town and was working door at House of Bricks. Like, they are a staple in the community, and they're also another fun one to watch develop over time. Like they're how that comedy scene has grown, and then comedy clubs opening, like Sid Jawarker opening Teehees, and just to see like this burgeoning comedy scene. And I'm telling you, art begets art. Like,
yes,
it's just the way it is. And we've watched it develop in our room. Like when we were first doing those open mics, it was just the 12 comics that were getting on stage, but we stuck with it. They stuck with it. And, before COVID started killing us all, our comedy nights could be 130 people in the room.
Jesus.
With 50 comics signed up to do 4-minute bits. Like,
that's insanity.
It was complete insanity. And it's not a comedy club in the traditional sense. Mm-hmm. So we get pretty loose and everybody gets pretty buzzed in it. And there's always crazy stuff that happens. Like, some of my favorite stories are out of those Tuesday nights. Like, why are we this drunk on a Tuesday night? Like, why did this happen? And I don't know. I love that organic thing. We didn't force it. We didn't try to market it heavily. We just said, here's what we're going to do. We enjoy comedy and we're going to stick with it. And hopefully you guys dig it. And those guys have been great at cultivating that. And yeah, it's been one of our more successful things we've done for sure.
I bet you run into some cool stuff, because comedy's one of those things where think about it like in a music sense. You don't just go up on stage and like, we just wrote this right now, like as we were playing it. Like, that's not how comedy works. Nope. But in some sense, they got to have like a premise, and then they've got to go try it somewhere. You can't just practice in your room, kind of like a musician can. You got to see what people are going to laugh at and how they're going to react to things. Yep. So you might end up with people trying out fresh bits in your place before they take it to a comedy club where it's probably a little more polished. That could be ludicrously hilarious.
It is. I mean, it really is. And sometimes, like, we're probably not supposed to say, but like, we've let other people bring their dogs in, so like Lefty's in there. So there's been nights where there's like 4 dogs chasing each other around a room full of drunk people, and they're all getting on stage, and like, it's just mayhem. It's complete and utter mayhem, but it's like, it is organic comedy. There's drunk people that didn't know they were walking into a free comedy open mic, and they're heckling, and they get shredded from the stage by somebody who's never dealt with a heckler. And it creates new bits, and it creates fun environment for everybody. It's such a cool thing, man. I love it.
Yeah. Let's talk about how everything's changed due to the coronavirus for you, because things have changed, but you guys have adapted pretty well for a live venue. As far as I can see, you're one of the venues at the forefront of bringing in other people, bands, local acts, things like that, and letting them play an empty venue show. And there's venues doing that, and people are doing it from their basements. But the one thing I have to say, you guys still are running all the professional sound, professional light. You're letting them on stage. You're doing the whole 9 yards. Not only that, but you've got a good camera setup. You've got good transitions. You've got that. If you go to Lefty's and look at any of the past live shows they've done during the coronavirus epidemic that we got going on here, you can see that it starts out with hey, we got 10 minutes till this band is here. Here's a logo. Here's the countdown. And then when it's time, it's time. And I feel like you guys have one of the most professional setups for this oddly unique situation that's going on. And any bands, I'm telling you right now, any bands looking for a place to play live during this, you'll play in an empty venue, but you will have people watching you online. And Lefty's might be the place to hit up. It's
a weird experience. So I took my band in to do it, and I mean, we've all played to kind of empty rooms before, so we kind of know what it feels like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, this is one of the shows we didn't promote very well. So great, we've got Brad, the sound guy, we're going to play for. But kind of once you get into it, it's you're just back playing loud music again, and there's, you know, we're turning the PA up, like we're letting you get the full experience as a band to be able to play loud, and we all love to do that. So it's been really good for us. We needed an outlet musically, because that's who we are, and we know that bands do too, and then we know that people online needed that as well. And then you want to be safe at the same time, you know, like we're doing this over Skype. Like you want to be as safe as you can with social distancing, and we want to follow guidelines, and we don't want anybody to get sick. We want everybody to be as safe as they can. So we're limiting it to one band per night. So it allows us to sanitize the room after everybody's gone, and all the gear and everything on stage. And it allows us to feel like we're doing best practices, but we're still getting to kind of do music. And they have been really successful. I mean, there's bands that play for 30 people that, you know, when we put it up on a stream and they did their 45-minute to an hour set, there's 4,000 people that viewed it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to do that. And we know that the boys worked really hard in the back to get the sound that, you know, the feed that was coming out into people's computers or phones or whatever, that it was going to be a really solid compressed sound, that it would sound like something on Spotify. So the quality was right.
Yep.
And that's good material for bands to keep. They can take that and use that as promotional material. Like we've had tons of bands go, man, that's like that one song, that's the best we've ever played it. And now we have a live clip of it that's not recorded through somebody's cell phone standing 2 inches from a gargantuan speaker. Like,
yeah.
So we feel like we're doing a service at the same time. It's also a community effort to, we want to open stuff up as bad as everybody else does. I want to do big shows, and I want a bunch of people in there having fun. So we're just trying to figure out how to survive through donations, people donating to our PayPal and our Venmo during those shows, and trying to get good footage for the bands that they can use in the future and that they can draw more fans in with. And I think we'll all just figure out whenever this is over, we'll all get back together and smile about the experience, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's brilliant too, because that's actually the reason I started Audible Farm over 2 years ago, was the fact that I played in a band. They didn't have almost any live videos. And like you said, the only live videos they had was somebody with a cell phone camera from 2004 held vertically 6 inches from one guitarist, you know? And so, and you end up with that situation so much online, and it's literally nothing more than a detriment to the band that's being recorded.
Yes. And if you get, you know, one of the first things a label will tell you, if you get signed as a band, I've been on different labels, they will go tell you, if they have their own PR team, their PR team will go and rip everything off of YouTube and everything off your social media. They will not allow you to have crap footage out there, because somebody's going to find it, and nobody wants to hear that.
No.
Like, that's not a representation. I know what my band sounds like, but it doesn't sound, I don't want my drummer's girlfriend's sister's mom's cell phone footage. Like, I don't, that's not a representation of my band. So.
Yeah. It sounds like somebody's playing through like a field culvert or something. It just, just don't sound good.
Just focused on the drummer's left hand.
But I mean, that's with Audible Farm. I was like, I'm going to record some of the bands I see live. Some of them don't have any recording. Some of them don't even have the means to record stuff in a studio or on an independent level. So what I'm going to do is, I mean, what I did was I walked around with a portable recorder that got the best sound for the cheapest amount of money that you could spend. And I just set that in a room. I recorded with a cell phone, and I mushed the two audio files together. You take the one off the video track because it's probably sounds like doo-doo. And then you put the nice portable recorder in there, you slice up all the videos, and I would send them to bands and say, hey, I made this video for you. I'll chop it up into individual songs if you want and put it on my YouTube if you give me permission. And some of those bands, one of the original ones was Sports Team, who's now TV Cop, but I remember I recorded some of their footage and gave it to them and put it up on the Audible Farm YouTube page, and I said, hey, do whatever you want with this. I don't even care if you rip the videos off and put them on your own channel. None of it matters to me really, because it's all just for public domain, but they used the footage that I shot and sent it to people and got bookings based on the fact that there was better audio and video quality at certain locations, and that does make a difference. So believe it or not, you guys are doing a huge due service to some of these bands to give them the audio quality and video quality that they might not otherwise have an opportunity to even have at their disposal.
We don't all have budgets, and you can get audio without the visual, and that doesn't do enough justice sometimes. Like,
true.
Sometimes I need to see Mr. Bungle live to know what Mr. Bungle is. Like,
yep.
I want to see. That's why live shows are so great. I want to see footage. As somebody who books bands, I go look for footage of bands all the time. I have to take into account that it's some dude's mom's cell phone, but I'm trying to look through that. And if there's good footage, man, like Marvin, they were one of those ones that you go look at their YouTube footage. It sounds so fantastic. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Live feeds of them in the studio recording those songs. Like it's ridiculous. So that's an easy band to book based off of, me spending 2 minutes on YouTube going, holy shit. Yeah. That band's got to play in here.
Yeah. You hear one of their songs on Spotify or wherever and you're like, dude, that sounds good. And you go look them up live and you're like, it sounds just as good live. You're booked. And it was like, I guarantee you for you, it was like you said, like a 2-minute decision. You're like, yep. Okay. Yes. I'm in.
No brainer. And then I was like, and I'm going to make my band play with them.
Yeah. That was the thing though. Like if you think about it and you bring in Marvin into town, and this is no offense to me being in a punk band, but like Three Finger Betty's probably not going to be the best opener for Marvin,
Right. Yes.
And that's, like I said, that's nothing against me and my punk band or any of the other punk bands or rock bands that are out there. But you guys were a great fit for when I went and saw Marvin at Lefty's. You guys were a amazing fit. You might have even opened up for him the last time I was there.
Yeah, I think it did. And of course, I always ask them, like after but when we did the first show, I was like, my band's a prog band, but we're way heavier than you guys are. Like, are you down with it? And of course, Danny was like, dude, you guys are sick. That's a perfect fit for us. Like, we don't care if it's like us, like if it's jazzy like us, but if the approach is similar and you're, you know what I mean? Like you're being very careful in how you approach it and you're well rehearsed. Like, yeah, we want to play with those bands. We don't care what their genre is per se. So,
yeah, it's going to be kind of hard to match something with gypsy folk jazz anyway.
Yeah, who exactly. And they've cut out their own niche. There's nobody that sounds like them. So,
oh no. And
I get lots of bands like that, man. I get excited when I hear a band and I'm like, what in the shit do I put that with?
Yeah.
I have no idea. And then it just makes me want to go out into the community more and listen to more bands live and like run up and down Ingersoll on Monday nights and listen to the open mics and check out who's playing at the open mic at Carl's and be outside of my bubble and listen to up and coming bands and developmental bands and stuff. And I get most of my stuff from that because there's just no way. Like bands are changing constantly. I've got a list of 400 local bands and those bands are rotating members and changing names and doing different genres, and some of them when I met them 10 years ago were doing blues and now they're doing honky tonk, and it's like you got to be plugged into it and understand it and be around it. Submerge yourself in it more or less, and it's a good scene to submerge yourself in. Like I go back to, I think we're extremely blessed to be in the city we're in and to have the talent level of visual artists and musical artists. And I mean, everything from those murals on our wall, that's local. Those are local artists doing those incredible things. And it's everywhere here, man.
Yeah. I mean, Des Moines is easily a treasure trove of awesome musicians, artists, and things like that. And I think the toughest part is just getting everyone to kind of not necessarily sit down together, but getting people in touch with one another to find the right people that are going to help mix either the art with the music or cross promote each other and things like that. I also feel like that's been one of the most difficult things as far as playing in the Des Moines area is getting that following or letting people know that your band is a band that is here to stay. For example, like Three Finger Betty has been around for 6 or 7 years, but for the last 4 years, it's been this, 3 or 4 years, it's been the same lineup with me in the band, etc. And that's one of those things where like we're not gonna just like disappear off the face of the map one day,
Right.
and having those steadfast bands, I feel like that might be some of the deterrent that some people have when they want to I don't know, say like focus some of their attention on these bands. I guarantee you there's some people that are like, well, this band is just going to break up in a year anyways, so there's no reason for me to invest anything in them.
It's why, it's interesting you bring that up, and we're talking about this is because it's part of the approach that we used for booking from day one, was that we were going to try to promote the venue as opposed to the individual bands, because the rollover. And because we're going to bring in bands that people have never heard of. So do I try to market 35 bands a week? Like, how do I do that? No, you market the venue, you market the experience. And so if people start to gain trust with me personally, and that they know that, well, I don't know any of those 3 bands, but Erik books good bands. So I'm just going to go out. I know it's a Wednesday night, but fuck it. I'm going to go out and take a chance on it. And I think that's how the scene develops at a more rapid pace, because they don't, you may have your followers that you build as a band, but then you're playing a destination. Woolies did a great job of doing that. Like, oh shit, if your band's playing Woolies, then fuck, everybody's got to go.
Everybody's going. Yeah.
So that was kind of the idea behind that, is that, you may not know who it is, but you may walk in and it may be Jeff Banks, and you may go, oh shit. Like, I had no idea that Jeff Banks played in this band, but I should have known that it was going to be an amazing night, regardless of what night it is.
Yeah. I feel like you guys have done a great job of that over at Lefty's, as far as booking bands that are willing to play, and not only that, but pairing bands with headliner bands that are coming through and giving them a shot to kind of allow them to open up for a different crowd and a different group of people. And I mean, I oftentimes think, even though Des Moines isn't really that big, sometimes I feel like location has something to do with it. I mean, I've played venues all across Des Moines, and it's kind of crazy because you go to like one venue and it's the same set of people that'll always go to that venue to see you play. But if you play, 2 miles across town, all of a sudden, all those people that are always at this show over here at this bar are not at that bar. Do you ever run into anything like that? Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, Ingersoll has its thing, and East Village has its thing. Downtown kind of has its thing. We started over in Dogtown, in kind of the campus area, and there was really nothing over there. And so, but we knew that there had been music there before, and I like where it's located. I love the Sherman Hill area. I love Dogtown. I love, that campus area. And so as we opened, it was like, we know it's a little of an uphill battle to make this a destination point, because it's not on Ingersoll, or it's not in the East Village. Like, we didn't have kind of the benefit of foot traffic necessarily. So we just kind of had to rest on our laurels. Like, people are going to show up, and we're just going to kind of keep plowing the road, as straight as we possibly can. And 5 years later, we're still here. So we have to be doing a couple of things right. I hope, like, it hasn't all been on accident. I think that's something we've seen really over the past 5 years, is that more places are doing music, and we feel like that we've affected that, and Woolies has affected that, and Gaslamps affected that, and Vaudeville's has affected that. Like, the harder we push, the harder they push. The harder they push, the harder we push. We're trying to get better shows. They're trying to get better shows. And it's this healthy, it's not competition. It's just this healthy way to energize kind of the music scene. And now we're seeing new music venues open up. And now we're seeing, there's just more bars that are doing music. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, you stole my thunder. That's my, like, I booked those 3 bands last week, and now they're playing your little rinky-dink bar. But it's really cool that that's happening. Like, because all these business owners, all these bar owners are seeing the value in live entertainment. And that's what we want. I mean, that's what we want. We want to have 50 choices on every night of the week to go out and see something wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite things about it, is I always looked at competition as something that was not always a bad thing, because it just helps everybody raise the bar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's you're in a band and there's another band that plays kind of the same genre as you, and they're playing across town. It's not a bad thing, you know. You get to at least there's live music out there. I mean, I've only been in the music scene 3 or 4 years, but I recall like being in the music scene a while back, and there's like nowhere to play, you know. In Des Moines, there's
2 places.
Yeah, in Des Moines, there's
in
like
the capital of the state to play. There's 2 places to play. Like there should be 50. Like it should be, and hopefully it continues to grow that way. Hopefully that, you know, once we get past this kind of pandemic, that we go right back to, you know, mission statement number 1, and that's to give people great experiences musically and artistically. And I think it will. I think it'll continue to grow. It's going to be a slow process rolling back up into it. I think we talked about that a little bit, but I don't know. I'm excited for it. I think people are super thirsty, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I mean, like I feel like it's not just in the Des Moines area. I'm located in the northern Iowa area, and even up here, it's just like the local music scene's been blowing up the last few years. Places that are allowing music into their venues is blowing up, and
Yep.
it's kind of like you said earlier. Like you can tell the places that have the best available everything based on the fact that like I was talking about Lefties. You guys have your own lighting, a stage, sound system, sound person. There's a bar like in the building right there. It's fully
Right.
stocked. It's not like just something that people hacked together and we're just like, well, we're gonna have live music. I bought a $400 PA from somebody. Just try and figure it out if you can. And
Right. We're
know.
not a bar that does live music. We're a music venue that has a bar.
oh, I like
Yeah.
that. I like that a
Well,
lot.
I always tried to say that. People are like, well, it feels weird, like I'm going to a bar. No, you're not going to a bar. We just happen to have concessions, just like the zoo. You're not going to the zoo to catch a beer. You're going to I'm glad they have concessions and you can get a beer, because I want to see the hippos while I'm drinking a beer. But
That's brilliant. I love the way that comes out. Like that's I feel like every podcast you come away with some gold, and this one that's gold money right there. You're a music venue that has a bar in it. It's not necessarily just a bar you're going to that's going to have people in the corner being loud, you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Dude, that's brilliant.
The music, not the novelty, you know, it's the focus. And so I think I've played music in every kind of place there is to play. I've busked for money, like,
Ooh.
so, and I think they all serve their purpose.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I like going into a bar that isn't a music venue and playing music in there. Like, I love that experience. But then there's a different experience when you go into a music venue that's like, oh shit, this is what they do. Like, this is full time, 7 days a week, what they do. Like, they know how to load us in. They have, you know, everything is down to the detail of how you load in, when you sound check, when you play, like, and it's run in a professional manner. And again, to me as a musician, that always puts me at ease when I know exactly what's happening and how it's going to happen. All I have to do is play good. I just got to play good tonight. That's it.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than standing on stage hooking stuff up and you're like, what's going on? Like, who's playing first? Or are we backlining? Like, there's nothing worse than going to a venue and being told one thing by one person, and then the lead guitarist comes up and he says, no, we're doing this instead. And it's like,
or even going into a place and they say, oh, we didn't even know there was bands tonight. You go,
oof.
Fuck, this would be great.
Yeah, no kidding. I bet a lot of people show up to this, you know?
Yeah, we're on the poster on the front fucking door. You didn't know? You work here?
Yeah, the person that walked through and unlocked the door, they didn't even look at it.
Oh, I didn't know there were bands.
Yeah.
Not good. Not a good sign.
No. And I mean, that's just the thing you go through. Like, I found that in the music scene so much. There's such a variation of, like you said, you can busk on the corner, you can play in somebody's basement in their house, you can play, like I said, house shows. You could play at a venue that is not designed for live music but has like a corner set up for it. There's so many wide varieties of places to play, and that's one reason I'm glad that Lefties exists, is the fact that it's a very professional place for people who might not be an actual professional musician to go in and play and get that environment and that interaction from a crowd. You know, it's really kind of cool. It's not something that is available everywhere for everyone. You know, even if you go across the state, like Waterloo has Spicoli's, but there's very few places like this that exist in these big towns that have the following that Lefties does. And I think a lot of it lies in your guys' professionalism as far as providing a place for bands to come play that is a professional environment.
Yeah, and it does have it's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of cool things going for it, man. Like we're lucky with the community effort in helping us build it and find it and create it. And it wasn't just me and Ann. It was from carpenters to painters to to just people going, hey, I'll help you clean the bar. I'll help you do this. We'll help you do that. It was such a big effort, and that we always felt like, oh, we're the Green Bay Packers of venues. Like everybody owns a stake. Everybody has something that they've touched in that room. Hopefully, like someone asked me once, like, why are there sequins on the wall over there? And I said, because someone wanted to put sequins on the wall. And they were like, that's the best answer ever. And I was like, it's the only answer. I didn't commission art to happen. It just happened. It like spilled out of somebody's purse and now it's on the wall and I'm cool with it. Like I dig it. So
yeah, I think some of that is like, God, what's the right word for it? It's like a happenstance. It's just like a lucky thing that happened and you just kind of let it go. And it's like, dude, this turned out really cool because I didn't put my fingers in it and muddy it up.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot to be said, like bands that get signed, they talk about that all the time. You hear them talk about timing. Like we were just in the right place at the right time kind of thing. It's like capturing lightning in a bottle. I feel like we were kind of in that situation where we had the right idea at the right time. We found the right location, the right people stepped in and helped us. And now we're just kind of like trying to manage the snowball that it is, like direct it in the right direction and make sure that we do it justice because it's got its own life now. We don't control it. It's its own thing.
Dude, we've covered an hour here. I feel like we've talked a little bit about what you're about, kind of where you came from, and how you got the inspiration to start Lefties. And it sounds like it all came from the fact that you are a musician yourself, and you've played in handfuls of places, and you just wanted a place that was going to be comfortable for you to be in, and was just kind of like home for you and other musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is that. It was, in a selfish sense, I was like, this is kind of my dream venue. Like I like playing the little dive bars. I like playing the big places, but that 300 to 350 person room is magical to me. And that's my own personal experience with playing music that's where I've always been able to express my personal self musically the best. And I think a lot of other musicians feel that way too. At least that's the feedback I get. I've been around musicians all my life, and most of them love playing in a room like that. So we're just lucky at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said about that. Like, if you can play in a smaller venue that's packed and you get that intimate interaction with the fans, I mean, I've never played to 10,000 people or anything like that, but I'm assuming it's just like it's this weird thing where you get to interact with the audience because it's just small enough yet huge that you get.
Yeah, you lose connection a little bit. For me personally, like I've played in front of 90,000 people, and you lose it. Like you lose connection with people. Then you're just kind of like performance art. It's almost like just being on a video. Like you're just kind of. You can't really pick anybody out of the crowd, but when you're in a room that's 300 people size, like you're connected with everybody. And then there's a reason why those bands that are like the Reverend Horton Heats and the Black Flags and, the Agent Oranges and Guttermouths and bands like that want to play that room specifically. They're like, no, we love that intimate kind of big, small kind of venue. They love that spot. Mm-hmm. And they can go play for 10,000 people. They do all over the world. But then they still love coming to Des Moines, Iowa and playing a 300 person room. Like we all kind of, I think it takes us, a lot of us musicians back to our roots and like big sounding little rooms. We dig them.
Yeah. I like I said, I love the fact that you said it perfectly, a big little room. It's big enough that you can put a bunch of people in there, but it's not so big that you lose any sort of intimacy. You're not, like I said, it's not like Woolies is too big, but if you packed Woolies full of people, it's just like, there's so many people in here. I don't know what's going on.
I've been in there when it was packed, and I was just like, oh, it's just too many people for me.
Yeah, just a couple too many people.
Yep. I'm going to go to the green room. That's where I'm more comfortable.
I feel like that's also one of the odd benefits of Lefties is you guys don't have a parking lot right in front of the place, but you have all of this awesome side street parking and residential area nearby where you can I can go over here, park, and walk a block, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's easy to park. It's easy to get to. It's not downtown. You don't have to pay for a parking ramp. You've got all this. It's a nice area to go to catch a show if you're just going to drive into town and catch a show or go across town. I mean, you don't even have to pay for a parking meter. You don't have to leave the show halfway through to refill the parking meter.
No, I love, and back to that area of town. I love it. I love it. I love that it feels like you're in a neighborhood. I love the idea that every business on our strip is a local business. There's no conglomerate or chain businesses on our blocks, like, all the way up. The Chinese place is individually, independently, mom and pop. Fernando's, Mexican is mom and pop. Papaquino's, like Daydreams or Groovy Goods is what it's called now. Like the vape shop across the street, everybody, Platinum Cuts right next to us, doing like cool Brooklyn style barber shop stuff. Like,
oh yeah, that's right.
It's just got that eclectic feel when you go down into that neighborhood. It's like, oh yeah, all this is. You want a window shop. You want to go into each place and you're going to meet the owner. You're probably going to walk in and meet the owner, and he's probably going to be cooking your food. Like that's a cool feel to me.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that is also, I love that too. Cause I was thinking about that, how you guys always used to have like within walking distance, just about anything you needed. Like if you go there for a show and you're early, there was a place to go grab a bite to eat. Or if you came early and you liked guitars, for a long time, Crazy Horse Guitars was right at the end of the block. Yeah. And that place used to just be stacked full of insane instruments.
I know. Yes. Yeah. No, I loved having that. We got Sonic Factory. So you got a studio that's, I can throw a rock across the building and hit their front door. Like it's a cool little Bermuda Triangle. XBK just opened up around the corner. So you've got another smaller venue right next to us. And I mean, that area is just going to continue to grow, but it's going to grow. Hopefully is what we see is in the right direction. The city, the neighborhood association is pretty dedicated to small businesses and to, mom and pop people like us that had a vision and said, we just want to go do something that's good for the community. We're not money people. We're not conglomerate people. We're not franchising. We just want to do something cool. And so the neighborhood association's been behind that. The city's been behind us with that. And, I think that's a lucky environment to be in that. If we were in Atlanta, I couldn't do this. Like, there's just no way.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's nothing that would ruin the Lefties more than if somebody bulldozed a building down the block and put up like a McDonald's or Burger King or something,
Yeah. I'd have to say, like, we'll just move. We'll just move. I don't want that on my block. We'll fight that.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, that's one of the coolest things. Lefties has been, you've been in business for quite a while. You're doing great things with the music scene. And even during this odd time of the coronavirus and things like that, you've been doing a due service to the area, still inviting bands to come in and creating a safe environment for them where you're not packing the building full of people. You're not stacking 3 bands deep. You're not trying to overdo anything. It's just if we want to have a band in and they're okay with it, bring them in. We'll do one show. It'll just be one band. It'll be a nice short set, an hour long or something. And then we'll clean everything off, sanitize it, and bring someone in tomorrow if they want to come in. And looking at your upcoming events, I mean, you've booked bands, it seems like, just about for every night.
It's just about every night of the week through April. And I'm already going into May. I'm kind of expecting that's going to be that we'll probably hear something from the governor tomorrow or the next day. I guess this probably won't air till next week, and we'll probably know when we get to hear this, is that I think we're going to end up being still locked down into May. So I'm just being preemptive and booking streams into the second week of May. And if I have to turn them into full shows, then I'll just get on that horse and ride that thing when I have to. So,
well, let's put this out there for people. If people want to hit you up about booking a show there, what's the best place to get a hold of you to do that?
The best way to get a hold of us for booking is booking@leftieslivemusic.com.
All right.
I'm also accessible on Facebook under my first and last name. I've kind of just opened all doors at this point. I'm like, I'll take your submissions however I can get them at this point. Mm-hmm. And we've had an influx of bands that want to do it, and that's really cool to see that bands are. I mean, it's intimidating, honestly, to go get a professional recording and have no fans in front of you. It's like being in the studio, and you gotta kind of step your game up for it. You don't want to play sloppy, so I was happy to see just band after band after band just going, yes, we want to do it. Yes, we want to do it. Well, and it doesn't matter if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday because everybody's at home anyway. So every day is a weekend. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, we got in contact with Three Finger Betty, but scheduling didn't line up for the date that we had chosen. So we're still trying to find a way to get Three Finger Betty in there. But I mean, if you go to Lefty's Live Music, hit the events page, you got all the events for your live streams in your events page. So that's also kind of nice that you're putting those up there so people can still see who's going to be on live tomorrow, next week, 3 days from now, whenever.
Yeah, we're being super consistent about like all of our streams are at 8:00 at night. So we've kind of realized that everybody's, understanding like, well, shit, at 8:00, we know that Lefty's is streaming every night. So we've got that. And there's some other cool streams going on around town. The DSM TV stuff that John Locker's doing is fantastic.
Yeah. It looks
that dude. I mean, Sonic Factory is an amazing studio, and he's an amazing cinematographer in his own right. So he's got all this great equipment to do film stuff that we don't have. And John's an amazing guy too. But yeah, I love to see that other people are kind of picking it up and going, yeah, because it's one thing to watch people streaming from home, solo guitar. Like you had Matt Woods on. I love Matt.
Oh yeah.
And it was cool to watch him like playing from home and, play this song or play this cover, do a John Prine song. Like that stuff's cool. But then it was something different to have him come in and play an hour set on the stage.
Oh yeah.
It's just a different experience. And I mean, he loved it. We loved it. And the feedback online from his was absolutely out of this world. So, we're just going to keep doing it until they let us, get back to normal. And then I think we're going to, I would love to continue providing this service for bands as we move forward too.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, we can get the stems and give you this feed, kind of like what you were talking about, just providing that service for bands and saying, we can tape it if you want it. You can keep what you want, throw away what you don't want, but at least you can have some good footage. And we're set up to do it now. So why not? Why not be able to do it?
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions was what's your plan continuing to do this going forward, or is there one, or do you think putting out a live feed at the same time a band goes live in your venue, do you think that would be detrimental to the venue to bring people in, or to the band even?
I've definitely got two thoughts on that. Like, we'd have to put up a paywall, of course. Like, I think that's where you'd have to get into it. Is like we take the money we make through the door and give it to the bands. I mean, that's a lot of times that's how they get paid. A lot of bands are doing door deals. That's how most of us make our money. So there's got to be a way in there to find a happy medium. And it may be as we get open back up, we may be doing like soft openings. I'm not really sure. I mean, it comes down to the governor. If she says, well, you can do gatherings of 50 people now.
Oh yeah.
Well, then that's going to change our cap, and we have to change kind of how we look at it. And so then it might be an absolute necessity to put up a live stream while there's only 50 people in the room watching the band live so that they can get more people through a paywall. But we're open to all of it. Like, we want to do whatever is best for the bands and for the safety of everybody. So we're just going to follow direction, and then we're going to be as creative as we can inside of those directions. And hopefully we stay open through all of that. That would be the dream.
Yeah, man. I'm intrigued to see how all this all shakes down and what you guys continue to do to support all the musicians that are in the area. I got to say, just from me, thanks for doing this. It's really cool to see some of these bands. Some of them I haven't gotten the opportunity to see live, and now I get to see them. Like you said, it's not a cell phone camera video that's vertical, that's junky sound. You get a good representation of what the band is, and I'm actually getting to see bands that I know have existed and played in the area for years, finally getting to see them play live with good footage. So it's really cool. I gotta say, thanks to you and everybody else that's been working hard to make this happen.
Yeah, man. I know, and we appreciate you covering it. We appreciate Audible Farm and you guys bringing attention to it, and what you're doing is fantastic too, man. I know you've been all over the place working and putting up cool content, man. And it's just an accumulative effort. We all got to figure out a way to kind of band together and get through it. And then once we do, hopefully hopefully we'll all sing and dance at the end of it.
Yeah, man. I think if we all continue to just keep locking arms and walking down the street together, theoretically speaking, not
Yes.
Keep your social distance, but this is
Not like
theoretically,
Michigan.
theoretically thinking, if we all kind of band together, we can make this not as detrimental as it seems from a performer's standpoint.
Yeah, and hey, look, if we got to wear like bubble suits or some shit, we'll figure out a way to do that too. You know, I don't. If we have to wear hazmat suits, I'm okay with that too. But there's not going to be anything that stops local music. There's not going to be anything that stops humanity in general. I mean, something like this is a shakeup for everybody, and so many small businesses that are hurting and that are going to go under. And I don't feel we're not in that position. We feel pretty confident that no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. But the infrastructure of small businesses is just crumbling around us, and it's so sad to see it, because there's going to be a huge need for it when stuff does come back online. Like that favorite restaurant, I want Flying Mango to still be there, and I want Fernando's to still be there, and so hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, or even like the music. I didn't even think about this. There might be music venues that end up closing because of this.
Yes. Yeah. There's new places, I mean, that just opened up. Like, I mean, we know at least a handful of, independent small business owners that are doing music and art and comedy, and they just opened up. And I don't even know how we would have dealt with this if we were in our first year. I mean,
oh yeah,
we have the benefit of having a longer stretch. We've been here for 5 years. So we've got a little bit to rest on, and we can call on these bands and say, do you want to come in and stream? And people have been super generous with their donations to us. And so they're keeping us afloat, and, hopefully the community just keeps doing that for everybody. Keep ordering takeout food. I know everybody's tight on money, but you got to support the small businesses during this time too. So.
Yeah. So for anybody listening, check out Lefty's Live Music. You are at Lefty's Live Music on Facebook. I'll put other links down below to, I know you guys got a Twitter and probably an Instagram. I haven't hunted them down, but I'll find the links and put them down below. Also, highly recommend, don't forget Erik's a musician himself. This is something I got to say. Like
Every once in a while.
Yeah, you play in the Maw. I love watching you guys play live. Go to at the Maw Music on Facebook. I'll find other links, and you can help me with that. But I'll put all that stuff down below so you can find and listen to not just the stuff that's going on at Lefty's, but check out the Maw as well.
And when you listen to bands like us, don't just take the first song. Like you got to do a deep dive.
Yes.
You got to get past the first song, get into the second song, because each one of them is going to be a completely different journey. I know a lot of people are like, I listened to one song and you guys are kind of jazzy, and I'm not really into jazz. I'm like, well, if you listen to the next song, it's a doom metal song. So
yeah, exactly. Dude, I got to say, first and foremost, thanks for taking some time out of your day to sit down and talk with me, because I know you're busy doing the Lefty's thing still, just doing all of the stuff you do there. I absolutely love it. I got to say thanks for not just providing a place to play, but for having my band in there and letting them play at a venue such as this, and giving us the opportunity to open up for some cool bands and play there and entertain the community.
Yep, and we're going to keep doing it. We're gonna, in 2020 is not over. We're gonna have great shows coming up, and we'll have you guys back in the room and everybody else, and life's going to go on. I have faith in it.
Awesome. Hey, Erik, thanks a million. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Peter.
There's another episode in the bank, and it's another good one. I don't want to be like, my episodes are all great, but no, the guests make these episodes awesome. I've never sat down and really talked with Erik too much. I mean, I have talked to him before, but I haven't talked to him too much in regards to what he's done in the past, musically, etc. And it's really cool. It's really cool to hear that he's not just been, I've seen him play piano in the Maw, piano keys, seen him play keyboards in the Maw. But I've seen pictures of him playing trumpet. I didn't know how deep it all got. So it's really kind of cool to sit and realize that one of the guys sitting there helping book all the talent that comes through Lefty's is that talented of a musician himself. So it's really kind of sweet. It's really sweet to see that that's it all kind of comes full circle there. Not that you have to be a talented musician to book shows, but it's also really cool that that's just the case. So shout out to Erik over at Lefty's. Everybody check it out if you've got a band anywhere in Iowa and you want to maybe try and book a show in the Des Moines area. Check out the Lefty's shows. Send them something that you got. Let them know what kind of recordings you got, or anything. Maybe he'll book you on a show there sometime. Like we talked about in this podcast, sometimes those guys will just have giant lists of bands, be like, I think these guys are still together, they mesh well with this, I'll hit them up and see what they say. So it doesn't hurt to throw your name in the hat. So check it out if you guys are looking for a place to play in the Des Moines area. Maybe Lefty's is the place for you. If nothing else, check out the talent they got coming through there on a regular basis, under normal conditions, that is. There's something there every month for everybody, so check it out. It's really kind of cool to have a place like that in Des Moines, in a unique location. Like we talked about, it's not necessarily downtown, and it's kind of kind of near the university-ish, sort of. But yeah, it's cool. Check it out. It's easy to find. It's easy to park near. It's tons of local places you can walk around the area and find something else fun to do while you're waiting for the show to start too. So check it out, guys. Hey, Erik, thanks for joining me on this episode. Huge shout out to him taking some time out of his day in between doing all of the coordinating over at Lefty's, because they're still doing shows. So check out their Facebook for that. I got links for everything down below. So check it all out. And thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. If you want to check anything else out, go to www.audiblefarm.com. All the episodes are there, as well as links to all the places you can find Audible Farm. And there's even a post there about t-shirts and sweatshirts. We got some swag. If you guys want anything like that, hit me up. I got the goods. So hit us up if you want a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or both. And who knows, maybe we'll throw some stickers in there for free. Haha. So hit us up, www.audiblefarm.com. And I will check everybody next week. Peace.